You ever seen a self-proclaimed queen of the HOA faceplant straight into a septic tank? Because that's exactly what happened last Friday in my backyard. But let me rewind before you start picturing the smell. It all began with a banging on my door. Sharp, impatient, and far too early for a Saturday morning. I opened it to see Patricia Hendris, our HOA president, standing there with her clipboard, sunglasses, and that fake smile she wore like armor. "Mr. Nolan," she chirped, "I've received concerns about your shed. Now my shed sits at the back of my acre lot. Plain wood, a bit weathered but sturdy. I use it for lawn tools, spare parts, and a few fishing rods. Nothing scandalous." Still, Patricia had this sparkle in her. Like she was about to uncover a criminal operation. "I'll need to inspect it," she declared. "No warrant, no notice, just entitlement." I leaned on the doorframe. "Pretty sure my shed is an HOA property," I told her. "And last I checked, you're not code enforcement." That didn't sit well. Her lips tightened like she just swallowed vinegar. "Failure to comply," she said dramatically, "could result in fines." I shrugged. "Then fine away." That's when she marched right past me, down my driveway, muttering something about community standards. I followed, mostly to make sure she didn't trip over the garden hose. But when she reached the backyard, she stopped, right over the old septic cover I'd been planning to replace. She whipped out her phone, pretending to take evidence photos. "This is non-compliant," she scolded. "Sheds must be HOA-approved structures and yours..." Crack! The ground gave way beneath her. There was this awful snapping sound followed by a scream and a splash. I ran forward and looked down just in time to see Patricia, our perfectly polished, rule-obsessed president, flailing waist-deep in sewage. Her clipboard floated beside her like a sad little raft. "Help me!" she shrieked, covered in mud and, well, not mud. I tried not to laugh, but the sight was impossible to take seriously. I grabbed a rope from the shed and hauled her out, while she cursed me, the HOA, and this disgusting violation. When she finally stood, shaking and dripping, she glared at me like I'd dug the hole myself. "You'll regret this!" she spat, stomping off toward her car, leaving muddy footprints the whole way. I thought that was the end of it. But when HOA royalty takes a tumble, the kingdom always strikes back. By Monday morning, Patricia's accident was already the talk of the neighborhood. Every gossip chain from the cul-de-sac to the main road had some version of it. Some said she'd fallen into a hole while heroically inspecting property standards. Others whispered she'd been pushed. I didn't bother correcting anyone. But Patricia? She wasn't licking her wounds. She was plotting. When I got home from work that evening, I found a bright orange notice taped to my front door. HOA violation. Unapproved structure and unsanitary conditions. Beneath it, her signature, bold and angry. I laughed out loud. The woman had just fallen into my septic tank and was now trying to fine me for having one. I called the HOA office, expecting reason from someone, anyone. But the receptionist just said, "Mr. Nolan, you'll have to take that up with Mrs. Hendris directly." Oh, I planned to. The next day, I saw her strutting around the neighborhood, clipboard in hand, acting like she hadn't been publicly baptized in sewage. She was stopping at houses, chatting with other members, pointing toward my property like she was giving a crime scene briefing. I could see her lips move. Non-compliance, safety hazard, disciplinary action. That night, I checked my email. 3 new messages from the HOA, one demanding I remove the shed within 10 days, another scheduling a mandatory inspection, and the third, my favorite, a fine notice for hazardous waste exposure. She was weaponizing paperwork, so I decided to arm myself too, legally. My brother-in-law, Pete, is a building inspector for the county. I gave him a call, explained what happened, and he laughed so hard I thought he'd drop the phone. "You're kidding me," he said between gasps. "She fell in your tank and now wants to inspect it?" He came by the next morning with his badge and clipboard, the real kind, and did a full inspection of my property. Everything was up to code. He even documented the old septic cover as an accidental ground hazard in repair process, legit and sealed. I printed his report and dropped it right in the HOA mailbox with a short note. Certified inspection enclosed. Further visits will be considered trespassing. That should have ended it. But Patricia didn't back down. No, she doubled down. The next evening, I saw her outside my fence again, this time with a flashlight and a camera. I was on my porch, sipping coffee and trying to unwind, when that beam of light swept across my yard. It flicked over my truck, the grass, and finally stopped on the shed. I squinted, and there she was again, Patricia Hendris, in her immaculate cardigan, armed with a flashlight and determination that could only come from petty vengeance. I set my cup down and walked toward her, slow and calm. "You lost again, Patricia?" I called out. She flinched but didn't turn. Official HOA business, Mr. Nolan, she said, her voice trembling but defiant. We received another complaint about your shed's proximity to sanitation lines. I'm documenting for review. Funny, I said, since my county inspection cleared all that yesterday. She ignored me, snapping photos like a paparazzi at a scandal. The beam of her flashlight danced over the grass, and then I realized where she was standing. Just a few feet from the spot she'd fallen through last time. Patricia, I warned, don't take another step. Too late. There was a groan from the soil, a crunch, and then whoomp. She vanished again. This time, not into the tank, but into the half-dug pit where I'd started replacing the damaged cover. I ran over, peered down, and saw her sitting in a puddle of mud, clutching her flashlight like a lifeline. Her pristine white sneakers were history. You've got to be kidding me, she screamed. Patricia, I said, trying hard not to laugh, you really have to stop inspecting holes without permission. I'll sue you, she shouted. This is harassment. You're setting traps on HOA land. HOA land? I raised an eyebrow. You do remember where my fence starts, right? By the time I helped her climb out, again, her hair was matted, her face streaked with mud, and her phone completely ruined. She stomped off toward her car, spitting every insult in the English language. But that night, I knew it wasn't over. I saw her porch lights burn late. Her little army of HOA board members gathered at her house like a war council. And when I checked the community message board the next morning, there it was, her newest announcement. Emergency HOA meeting regarding Mr. Nolan's property violations, attendance mandatory. She was going to make a public example out of me. Little did she know, I had one final surprise ready for that meeting. The HOA clubhouse was packed. Neighbors filled every chair, whispering like it was some courtroom drama. Patricia stood at the front, her hair still frizzed from her mud incident but her posture tall, as if nothing had happened. She tapped the microphone, cleared her throat, and began her speech, with the same fake authority that had ruled our neighborhood for years. Fellow residents, she announced, we are gathered to address multiple violations committed by Mr. Nolan, who has repeatedly endangered our community's safety and ignored HOA regulations. Every eye turned to me. I sat near the back, arms crossed, calm as ever. She thought she had me cornered, but the folder in my lap said otherwise. She went on, showing printed photos, blurry nighttime shots of my shed, one even showing her own shoe midair before her second fall. This property, she continued dramatically, is a threat to our neighborhood's integrity. His shed, his septic issues, and his behavior, unacceptable. I waited until she paused for breath, then stood up. Mind if I respond, Madam President? She sneered but motioned me forward. Briefly, I walked up, placed the folder on the table, and opened it for everyone to see. This, I said, is the county inspection report. Certified, signed, and cleared. My septic system, my shed, everything, fully compliant. A few people leaned forward, murmuring. Patricia's confident smile twitched. And this, I added, pulling out a second document, is a trespassing warning filed with the county sheriff. It includes timestamps, photographs, and, security footage. I pointed at my phone. Of you, Patricia, walking onto my property, twice, without consent. The room went silent. Someone coughed. Patricia's face drained of color. That's absurd, she snapped. I was performing my duties. I pressed play on the footage. The screen showed her creeping through my yard at night, flashlight in hand. And then, her disappearing into the pit. The gasps that followed were glorious. A man in the front row muttered, "Is that where she fell?" Another whispered, "She's the one violating property laws." I turned back to her. You can't enforce what doesn't exist, Patricia. My property's private, and if this meeting continues, I'll happily show the rest of this footage to the county board. She stood there frozen, lips trembling, then grabbed her clipboard and stormed out to scattered chuckles. That night, the HOA quietly dropped every fine and violation against me. A week later, Patricia announced she was taking a leave of absence. No one asked where she was going. But every time it rains now, the smell near the clubhouse makes people smile. If you enjoyed watching Patricia get a taste of her own rules, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more wild HOA justice stories, and drop a comment about what you would have done in my shoes.